I found this line being sold by somebody at a convention back around 2009.
Yeah.
And I come to find out that they're no longer available in the hobby, and I've been selectively breeding them for better color now since then. And the result is that the line that comes out of here, they'll disappear if others don't breed them. So
Exactly, yeah.
those of you who get these and breed them, get these and keep them and enjoy them, please make an effort to breed them so they don't disappear. So the first thing you do is you get your females beefed and fattened up and full of eggs, which takes 1 to 2 weeks. And I do that with a number of different things. Brine shrimp works, frozen brine shrimp works well.
Yep.
And when you want the best, reddest males, then you want to choose females with a background body color that is not white.
Right.
You want a little bit slighter of a darker body color. For instance, this female is going to produce males with darker black in them. This female here is not going to show as much black, but it might show more red. And an important thing with all of these is not only to have good scale definition and black markings like this one does, but that they have a red anal and red dorsal fin. That tells you you're going to produce good red males.
Right.
So of about 200 females that I had in a recent batch, these were the only ones that met those criteria. So these are my breeders. And then the males, they breed more consistently. They look better. As a rule, overall, you don't have to pull them, very often because of poor quality. They generally look pretty good. But when you look closer at them, you can determine some which have better black and better red, and also the green spangling on their back. Some have more green spangling than others. So when the females are ready to go, and you have a month ahead of you when you're going to be home every day,
Yep.
and you can feed them 3 times a day and do a 50% water change following each feeding, then I put this divider in, and the divider goes into this tank.
Yep.
The sponge filters are taken out, and this goes in about 1.5 inches above the bottom, and then there's about 1.5 inches of water put above. The first thing I do is I'll fill this tank up to about here, and then I'll add some dried duckweed out of the fish room, and I'll let that go for 3 days. Duckweed takes 7 days for the infusoria in it to bloom. So you want to time it so that the hatching of the eggs happens at the same time that your infusoria is blooming,
Right.
which is about day 7.
Yeah.
So what I'll do is I'll get the infusoria, the dried duckweed in here, get it going for 3 days. Then I'll put this in. I'll put about 1.5 inches of water above the divider, and then I'll add 6 females that I've chosen to spawn. Below the divider, above the divider, will be some plants. I've been using Java fern lately. That works really well. Not a lot, but enough to provide infusoria and also places for the young to hide. And then I give the females 1 to 3 days to totally take ownership of the tank. You want them to have ownership of the tank. So when the males are introduced, they're seen as an interloper to a tank that the females own. So when you put the males in, they want to be aggressive and they want to meet. The males say, no, 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 not on my watch. This is my tank. You're going to behave. And that's where you get your best spawnings. Because you get your spawnings when your females want to breed, because your males are always going to want to breed. Then you keep an eye on them, and then usually within 36 hours to 48 hours, the females will have been thinned down.
Yep.
And so then I take the adults out. When I take the adults out, then I start the vinegar eel feedings, and I feed vinegar eels at 8 in the morning, 3 in the afternoon, and 9 o'clock at night. And each time I do a vinegar eel feeding, I wait 5 minutes, and then I drain it down 50%, and I re-put in fresh seasoned water. The water that I put in here after a feeding comes out of this tank. So I use the water from the female tank. You want to be careful when you're using water from this tank and putting it into this tank, that this tank where the fish are being bred is kept at 77 to 78 degrees.
Yeah, I was just about to ask that.
The room temperature for most of your tanks here is about 74 degrees.
Right.
So I have to put in, you'll see there's 2 heaters in the back here to try to keep this water up to about 78 degrees.
Yeah.
And then that way when I'm adding water to here, it doesn't shock the new fry. The way I feed them is when they're first hatched, they're hatched and maintained in 6 inches of water. You don't want to do more water than that.
Yeah.
When it comes time to feed them, I drain the water down to about here, down to about 1 inch, 1.5 inches. I feed the vinegar eels, I let them eat all they're going to eat, and then I bring the water level back up.
So the water level dropping, is that so it's easier for them to find the food in that space?
Yeah, right. Exactly. So that when you're done feeding and you bring the water level back up, you don't have any more food around in the water that the fish aren't going to eat than necessary, because that's just going to die and cloud up the water. The biggest thing is cloudiness. You can't let the water get cloudy.
So super clean water as well.
Super clean water. Yeah. So after every feeding, I usually check it at about an hour to an hour and a half. So if I'm feeding at 8 o'clock, then I come back out here and I'll check around 10 to make sure the water hasn't started to cloud up. If it has, then I may do an extra 50% water change. That's the whole thing, is to keep the water clear. And then you just keep up those 3 feedings, keeping the water clear for a month. And then at a month they're ready to split up. And I put in 4 males and 6 females. And when I do it at that number, I lose about 1 out of every 3 batches. I just lost a batch and there was over 1,000 in that batch. Incredible. So you never know. Sometimes you'll get 100, sometimes you'll get 1,000. And it all comes down to how the females are feeling, how the males are feeling, what your temperatures are, etc.
So your best success will be when your females are like maximum conditioned, like fed really well, clean water, split off by themselves, so the males aren't trying to constantly breed with them.
And make sure that a little bit of food is going into them on a regular basis.
Yeah.
I just started, one of the reasons the last batch I lost, this stuff is a Sarah microfood. This is great for the Synodontis, and I used it for the Lucipennis, and it was great. And I thought this would be perfect for the Odessas.
Yeah, right.
So I ordered some on Amazon, I got it, and this last batch, the reason I lost them was because I used this stuff. For some reason, this stuff clouds the water up like nobody's business. They eat it really enthusiastically, it's great food, but within an hour the water's like milk. And whenever you get the water getting cloudy, and I mean we're talking feeding a little tiny bit.
Yeah,
I mean it just triggers a cloudiness that just overtook the tank. And so when you get a cloudiness, the bacteria uses up oxygen, and that starves the fry, and that's why the fry died. So next time, I'm not using this.
I feel like our Odessa Barbs, especially in Australia, I've never seen anything so red ever. So you've done an awesome job line breeding these guys.
Yeah, I don't know how red they'll get. I've just been breeding for better and better red. And
yeah.
It's just amazing. And I was fortunate enough to have somebody write me who lives in Burma and lives next to a lake where these live.
Really?
Yeah, lives in the wild. And he has a good friend who is a fish wholesaler and catches them from that lake and ships them overseas.
That's awesome.
So he sent me some videos of what they look like out of the wild. And from the wild, they don't look anything like this.
Yeah.
They're not nearly as brightly colored. They're a lot less brightly colored than that. So these don't look like their wild form any longer.
Where do you go once like the babies are up to size? Where do you put them from then on?
At a month old, that I split them up. And they get bacterial infections easy when they're overcrowded. So I've learned the hard way a number of times that I don't put more than roughly, well, they're all split out around now, but there's about 50 fish in that tank.
Yep.
And that's about the most I would put into a tank now. There was a time I can put 250 in a 29 tall. And, and I did it for a while and I lost a lot of tanks that way. So now I keep my numbers lower. This is the maximum number of adults, for instance, I want to put in a tank.
Yeah.
And keeping my numbers down has a lot to do with fry survival rate.
Awesome. Thanks so much for that. I really appreciate it.